Well, welcome everyone to the Badge and Beyond, a very special one this episode. The wonderful adventures of Jeff Garland. 16 years.
16 years, yeah.
16 years.
Very special.
Unbelievable career. He's had some highlights and lowlights and everything in between. This is a really special one, folks, so strap in. It's going to be a good episode. Thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I love telling my story, and if it's not anything, it's a warning to those who have served and will serve in the future, but there is hope.
Well, mate, testament to your book. I actually pretty much read it all in one sitting. And I was telling Anthony that it was just, I sat there and just started putting a list of a couple of things that we had in common. And then I hit like 15. I'm like, just
Yes.
it's uncanny what happens when you start your career at a really busy, eventful station like Redfern. And I was just drawing the similarities between Bankstown and Redfern. And just with the way you tell the story, it just encapsulates you, and you go on that journey with you. And it resounded for me in so many ways. I think for us, what's incredible is that you recognized the damage that you accumulate along the way, and you sort of push down in those dark spaces, and then where things you don't think are that much of a big deal really then kind of sort of you see the consequences.
There's no choice but to accept them or just keep denying them, and they just get worse. Yeah.
Absolutely. What led you to actually write the book?
Well, for me, I started writing it just after the incident with you. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be a book. For me, it was just a way for me to process everything I'd gone through in my career. And at that stage, I'd only been in the cops for like 5.5 years. And I said, like, Bankstown and Redfern were the places where you did not want to work. in the late 90s, that's where the worst of the worst were. But for me, it was just about a way to process what I was feeling. I had to get my thoughts out of my head and start writing it down. So it started with me writing about the incident with Ute, which allowed me to look at it from a different perspective. Then I started writing about all my earlier incidents before that led up to that, and there were a lot. And also, that's basically my journey to becoming a policeman, why I joined through the academy and things like that. And I ended up writing the book for over 13 years. It took me 13 years to write it and finish it. So being off work, my incidents leading up to that, and then having to return to work, that process, which was wonderful. And then going back to work, and then getting involved in more things at work because I didn't learn from my experiences, and then injuring my back, becoming suicidal, being discharged, and then finally realising that I've done this before, I can do it again, and then becoming PTSD free, being able to fully recover, and then running my own business, doing what I do now. So yeah, it wasn't meant to be a book. It's just a way that allowed me to process what I've been through in a way that I found very cathartic.
Tell us about your journey to becoming a police officer. What was it for you that said, yeah, this is what I want to do?
Oh, it's the lifelong dream, good versus evil, that sort of thing. So for me, it sounds silly, but I think there was an incident where I was with my mates, that sort of stuff, and we'd just ridden our bikes, did a big charity thing, rode a push bikes when we were 17 from Newcastle to Southport, because it was a good idea at the time, raising money for charity and stuff. And there was an incident where we're coming home one night, and I thought I saw a dead body on the side of the road. And for me, it absolutely freaked me out. But the policeman came over and stuff like that. They were really very supportive and things. So for me, that was someone that I always looked up to. I could always, not these days, and a lot of the days, police aren't very respected, but there's someone, like an institution, that I thought I'd really like to be part of. I should go out and help people, because obviously doing the work I did with the bike ride and stuff, I knew that my passion was helping people. So leaving school, got to get a job, that sort of thing. Don't know how to do that. So in terms of how do I help people, I thought, I'll actually go and join the police, because they actually help people, and that's something that really resonated with me. And yeah, that started my journey. So back in 1996, nearly 30 years ago. God, I sound old now.
No, we all feel it. Look, I think that resonates with a lot of people. I think some people join the cops for stability in a government job and, something different.
Because you get paid so well.
Yeah. But honestly, I think often the best cops are those that have an ideology that wants to help people, wants to make a difference. And I think that's also more often the guys that burn out, because they give so much.
They're the ones out there taking the risks and doing the job because they want to make a difference, and for them they keep pushing beyond what they're going through. With a lot of people who aren't that really into the job, they're there for the wrong reasons, they don't do too much, they don't get involved in much, they don't get affected by as much, because of the fact that that's not what they're putting themselves through, but those who put themselves out there, they're the ones who actually get affected. So it's kind of, I reframed it as like having the diagnosis is like a badge of being able to, you've actually put yourself out there in a position where you've actually, got to the extent where you've tried the best you can, you've risked your safety, you've tried to serve the community the best, did a job the best you could, but you try to suppress it the best you could, but in the end, you'd been through so much, you had to actually take a step back and realise, I actually need to look after me for a change, because that doesn't happen in the organisations and still doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess then you started at Redfern, which is now, is it South Sydney Command?
First 6 months were at Gosford on the Central Coast.
Oh, okay.
So
also not a lovely place though.
No. It's a bit better now. Yeah, for me, my first 6 months at Gosford, I lived on the Central Coast, so I worked there for the first 6 months, had a few incidents. My first job was Glenn Marks. He actually passed away 2 weeks ago. Absolute tall man, massive man, sort of bloke you want on your side and not want to meet down an alley sort of thing, and really taught me how to be a policeman and forget the warm and fuzzy rhetoric from the academy. He taught me how to be a policeman and stuff like that, and so I got involved in a number of things there. Had a car pursuit with someone with a shotgun, and as I was pulling me out of the car, he was reaching for the gun to shoot me. Had foot pursuit across, had a foot pursuit with an escapee from the juvenile facility there. I'm jumping across back fences and jumped over a fence, and he jumped over the fence first and ended up in the pool and stuff, and he jumped over a back fence, and I've jumped over on a trampoline and jumped and grabbed him, and he's dangling on the other side of the fence and all wet, and I'm just dangling on top, hanging onto him, and then just threw myself over, sat on him, and then almost fell in the pool myself, and I said to him, "So you have the right to remain wet." Really, that sort of stuff. But and I was by myself. I only been out of the academy a couple of months, and it was like, and the owner of the house came out and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Look, I'm policeman. I need my help. I need some help," sort of thing. And there was a big Doberman on the other side of the fence. I'm hoping that the door was locked and couldn't get through. So I was involved in a lot of things on the Central Coast. And then after 6 months, way back when, once you'd done that, you went to a station in the city, and they wanted to send me to Sydney. Like I didn't, after all that experience and fun I had at Gosford, I didn't want to go and just do shoplifters and frauds and stuff like that. So I actually swapped with a guy I went through the academy with to actually go to Redfern, and that was Redfern when it was Redfern back in the late 90s. And yeah.
I guess, well, this is something we spoke about before we started. That is Redfern now versus Redfern then. I was involved in the Redfern riots, did a lot of that kind of stuff afterwards. There was a lot of operations, but it was a different beast back then. Tell us, kind of set the scene for people, because I don't think if you work or you go through that area now, you don't really understand what that place was like.
You don't. Just think of an apocalyptic town sort of thing. It's amazing how Redfern could have existed so close to the CBD. It was basically one street away from the centre of the CBD. And it was just an area in which, for a lot of people, and police was a no-go zone, which I thought that was the worst thing. There was police getting injured, there was riots down there, and it's just a place where you didn't want to go, and obviously right near a train station, near a university, so it was easy pickings for people to basically come off the train, go down the block, get their drugs, get back on the train, go back, commit offences, rob people on the way to university and things like that. So
yeah, explain the block, because most people, if you don't know Sydney or even now, the block is vastly different. Explain the block to people.
So basically the block it's defines that area because it's basically 4 streets, a block of streets in which you had the Aboriginal housing co-op and a lot of Aboriginal people living down there in a time when there was a lot of violence between police and the local community, and that's how they defined it. It was called the block. So when you call it urgent down there, you know that you needed assistance, and I had a few urgents and a few signal ones down there myself. But it was just an area that it just didn't belong where it was. It belonged like in an area because the houses were all pretty much torn apart. They'd torn down walls between the houses themselves so they could run between houses. There was graffiti everywhere. There was needles everywhere and things like that. It was just completely unsafe. You had to actually see it back then to actually understand it. But if you went down there, you're highly likely you get robbed or assaulted. So it was a very dangerous place to work at. But it's exactly where I wanted to be. I'm so grateful for the fact that I got a chance to work in Redfern when it actually was Redfern. And
Yes.
I've been down there. I've taken my fiance down there and shown her the nice big shiny buildings now and that stuff. Like, it's just not the same sort of thing. Like we went down to see the Voice Grand Final in Shepherd Street, just one street away from where the block is. We parked the car there, we were walking around, had a nice cafe lunch. It's like this is just different.
It throws you off, doesn't it? I mean, like for those people that don't know, if you look at Google Maps now, you see there's all these old like semi-detached places, so like townhouses. So my understanding, like you said, they had the walls knocked out so they could go in the roof space and go. You'd have someone run in to the front one, and they're all in a line down the street, and they'd pop out down the end.
10 doors later, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, and I know someone I knew that worked there. She said like it was a 2-car minimum response to the block, and the first day there, she's talking like, "Oh, this isn't so bad." She felt something like just brush past, and brick dust came off her ear. Someone had thrown a brick at her head.
Welcome to Redfern.
And it just nicked her ear, and she's like, "Oh." Like it was a different beast. And then you had the Waterloo high rises. I've done some search warrants and things in there, and that is again like it's. I remember we did a search warrant, kicked in the door, and go in there for a robbery offender. And there's one guy sitting on a trolley, and the rest of the place was just newspapers and syringes. Like a turned over, like supermarket trolley was the only furniture you had in there, and the smell in the lift and like. It was, yeah.
There's certain parts of Redfern, that Redfern area, you didn't want to go. Waterloo was one of them. Like, I was involved in the Waterloo riots down there. Had lots of the riots in Redfern as well. And there's just certain areas that you just was a no-go zone. And a lot of police, especially from outside of the area, when we called for support, that it was treated as a no-go zone. And like during the riots of 2001 in Waterloo, it's like we were basically, it's called Operation Saw, Operation Stand Around Watching, because there were incidents that happened between the police and a young Aboriginal bloke, and it just escalated. Like I was driving along, I had a brick that hit the B pillar of my police car as I was driving past. So we had riots, had bricks and bottles thrown out, and we knew who the offenders were. We wanted to go and get them, but we basically just told us to stand there, and it just basically diminished the reputation of Redfern Police in one night. We just did nothing. We let them get the upper hand, and it just continued to get escalate from there. So yeah, lots of incidents in Waterloo, Redfern, all that sort of stuff, but it's a completely different place now.
And I think that really came through in the book. What was a great moment was when it comes full circle for you with one of the offenders.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to walk us through that?
That was the incident, I think, because there's lots of circles in Redfern. The one you talk about is where that I chased an offender in through the back of a house. Like young bloke was wanted for armed robbery, and I spent a lot of my time policing in around the block area, around Redfern, because I wanted to confront a crime head on. I wasn't the sort of policeman that would just back off and go and patrol somewhere else. So I was used to call it hunting. Used to go out and just look for offenders. I knew the offenders and knew what the bail conditions were and stuff like that. And on this one of the incidents I was involved in down there was, we knew there was a young bloke they wanted for armed robbery, so we just drove down, saw him, just left the car, chased him down Everly Lane, and ran in through the back of a house. So the officer and I were wrestling with this young bloke in the front of a house on a mattress. We got surrounded by people. He actually bit my arm. In that area where there's lots of drug use, didn't want to pull my arm out, thinking of some sort of communicable disease, so I ended up smashing a lamp over his head to let him go, to get off me, and my sister still wrestling with him. And all of a sudden, like, we are getting surrounded, we're about to get flogged, and because we ran in through the back of the unit, the house, we had no idea which one we're in, so we're calling urgent signal 1, we need help sort of thing, and cops are patrolling around out the front trying to find us, but we had no idea where we were. So, and then we just fearing the worst, it's like, this is just not going to end well, like worse than what it was actually going. And then one of the locals I had dealings with before actually just stepped forward and said, they've got him, let him go. It's like, bang, and then seconds later the front door opened. It's like, oh my God. It was like the best feeling. Like one of the best things in the police, especially working in a place like Redfern, I'm sure you can attest, like working in Bankstown, is hearing the sirens. If you call urgent, you know that you're going to get assistance real quick. Especially with you in Redfern as well. So, but the fact that we went in through the back of the house, it's like we had no idea where we were. Yeah. And the fact when you get that support and assistance, it's just great to know that that's not that far away.
And that's the thing. There was many times we've all been there where
that's a Tuesday morning. That was.
Yeah. Where you're like, I'm in a bit of a position now where I can't really sort of get out because of circumstances, and people don't have that appreciation of how that feels. And also we talk, especially in the book, you speak about also even just having the luxury of having a portable with you sometimes, because again, early days, you had one between two if you're lucky, and then it's like all of a sudden you're both running somewhere and no one knows where you are.
Yep. Mobile phones weren't like
there's
just
no mobile
everywhere,
phones, no.
like it was just one. Yeah.
And I started I was just living it, going, I remember those kind of times where you're like, there's certain elements of this community that aren't big fans of us, and if they decide as a pack now to do something, there's not much I can do about it. And I think you also had instances where you're like, there wasn't that many tactical options left. Are you going to pull your firearm out, right, or nothing, right?
I think the interesting thing though that I don't think people outside of policing understand is that it's really bad to take a backward step. It is really bad ongoing for you to go, like in that circumstance, the potential is you can go, okay mate, we know who you are, we know we'll come across you again, we'll let you go.
You will pass that threshold of that fence line.
Yep.
If you go there, then they know that they can always do it. But the fact that
100%.
you're willing to run through that and put your life on the line to go and go, you know what, I'm coming after you no matter what.
They have to understand that actions, like for the benefit of the community as well, and for the benefit of future police operations, and just understanding that an action has a consequence and you are the consequence. And once you've engaged with that subject, the only natural progression is they go back to the cells, they get charged and processed, they go before a court. When you back away and shirk that responsibility, you've let down your oath, you've let down your teammates, you've let down the community, and you've emboldened everybody that sees that and hears about that. And so what that offender or those people that have witnessed that then go, all I've got to do is fight harder, run faster, do more damage, because the more I do, the more they pull back, and then I can get away with it. And people don't understand that.
It's like when they stopped, we couldn't have pursuits in the cage vehicles anymore. So there's a crook, they know that there's those paddy wagons out in the road. They can steal a car and know that we can't chase them. Which, I mean, and like that goes further to say, like, look what's happening in Queensland now in terms of youth crime.
Yep.
There's no consequences. Like, you've got to draw the line. That's what I'm saying. You've got to go and do what you've got to do because it's your oath to go and do it. So if you take a step back, then they're going to go, I know I can get away with this. And that's why society and why crime's so bad in certain areas, because the fact that they're allowed to do it. There's no consequence for it. They can go and get arrested and go out and do more crimes.
The interesting thing about that is the consequence now is on the police officer for doing their job and chasing and doing whatever. And it's, woe is the poor individual that's committed the criminal act against good, normal members of the community that have nothing to do with them, just living their life. And police officers are the worst because they did what society need them to do. Not just want them to do, but need them to do.
But on top of that, then you've got elements of management where you're just a pain in the ass for them.
Yeah, because you're a good cop.
Because you're a good cop. And I think that's where, again, like for me, it was like, you had this level of policing whereby you knew the crooks, you knew the areas, you were doing what we always did, get that hot list out, start looking for the stolen cars. This is before our MDTs were everywhere. And then the crooks knew you. So they also know, you recognise who they are, you know what they've done. And I love the fact that you went up into the stint in Intel. So then it's another layer of extra sort of insight. But no, he didn't do the cake eater thing, right? So we spoke about that last episode, where he actually went back in, and then Jeff's like, I'm going to impart this knowledge and use that as a tool back on the street. Now that's a massive advantage and a massive asset to a team. Mate, later on you become a prosecutor and you're back on the road. So there's just like all this enhancing of skills in policing, and it's not always taken upstairs the right way. And it just, like anywhere else in the corporate space, that's an asset. That's someone that you use.
You'd be headhunted.
Mate, that's who you use to mentor your staff. That's who you use to drive. That's an investment in the future of the company. And unfortunately, in those circumstances, many times it wasn't seen that way.
Yeah, especially in the 90s, that sort of thing. It was people just want to get promotion for the sake of getting promotions, and they'd step on you to get that way. Like I was involved in incident in Redfern, surprise, surprise, where there was a stolen car. I knew we couldn't pursue in a cage truck. We identified that it was stolen, and we gave the locations, and we'd follow it. But it would taken off, but it'd come around the corner and it'd crash on the side of the road because a bloke had been affected by drugs and stuff like that. And then he'd try and ram us. And then, so we were stopped, and then he was going back towards the car and back towards the block. And then he tried to ram another police car, and that slowed him down again. So we've come around the corner. Oh, there he is, fair enough. And then he's tried to turn the corner into the block and crashed in the hotel. The car caught on fire. And there happened to be an inspector sitting right at the intersection where he's there and I'm there, because the fact that he'd crashed and tried to ram a car off the road. So he's basically stationary as I've come around the corner, and kicked the window in, saved his life. Wasn't happy, he lost his shoe. And then I got put on paper because I'd breached the safe driver policy. And then the boss goes, like 2 weeks later, I was never interviewed about it. The boss says, I need you to put a report in so I can get you back out on the road, because once you lodge an appeal, you get your certification back. But there was no option. I wasn't interviewed, my partner wasn't interviewed, and everything like that. And that, funnily enough, years later, after the incident with the ute, they were taking the incident with the ute in consideration as to whether I got my driving certification back.
Yeah, I don't know. That threw me off.
What?
Even though I was in the tray of the ute at the time, I wasn't driving. They said there's some sort of similarity going on here. So
We've got to. All right. Can we jump to the scenario? Because I think people, and it's on the front cover of the book, so you'll see it, but it's on YouTube as well. It was on the news. Yeah. I remember seeing it on the news. And look, I'm surprised by the sounds of it. You didn't get a ticket for riding unsecured without a seatbelt.
I had a rope.
Run us through, because this is one of the things I think is not the pinnacle of your career, but one of the defining incidents that leads you to where you are today. So run us through that incident.
So back in July 30th, 2001, normal day, head down to Redfern from the Central Coast. I had a feeling that day it wasn't going to be a good day. Got to work, had a new probationary constable, only been a few days on the job. Had a run in with an inspector that morning, so just the feeling just got worse and worse. So, and we're just doing patrols around the area, and I saw this ute down in the block area. So thought looked suspicious, because you patrol there often enough, you know what car's there.
There's also a lot of drug dealing and stuff in the block, I think, as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. So usually if a car's down there, it's either stolen, unregistered, or whatever. So I could have done the right thing and not the right thing. I could have just got it towed and stuff like that. But no, bugger it. I want to sit off this and see how we go. So I was the passenger at this stage, the probationary constable. I was teaching him the ropes and everything else, and he was driving. So we drove around the block and come back in, and here's this ute driving towards us. So I've got him to basically box the car in, nice easy arrest. So I've gotten out, gone to the driver's side of the vehicle and said, mate, stop, you're under arrest. Next thing you know, I'm actually in the tray of the ute. While he's driving away, I've looked back, my probationary constable's standing there going like this. I'm going, oh shit. So look, I still have no idea how I managed to get, back those days I was over 100 kilos plus the uniform, plus the appointments, everything else, managed to get myself over into the tray of this Toyota Land Cruiser ute. So here I was pretty much stuck. Lucky this time, I remembered my portable, because that incident I said with the escapade jumping over fences, I didn't have a portable radio with me at all. So I was on my own. So luckily that worked out well. So I was very grateful that I learnt my lesson from 5 years earlier and actually had my portable radio with me. So here I am, Redfern 45 urgent. I'm in the tray of a stolen vehicle. I need assistance. She's gone, are you in pursuit of this vehicle? So no, I'm in the tray radio. And so here I am calling my locations as this vehicle. I'm in the ute. It's the tray.
I realise no one probably has ever broadcast that. I'm in the back of a ute.
Yeah, that's what she said to clarify. Are you in pursuit? No, I'm in the tray at the back radio. I need assistance. So she's gone, beat all Redfern cars in the area. Keep a lookout for this vehicle. So I managed to get the rego and stuff like that, and I'm crouched down the back of the road, like back of the ute. Each side of the ute had a toolbox and had this length of rope. So I'm going, I need to try and hang on. So I had the portable in one hand, had the rope in the other hand, calling my locations, looking at this driver going, no, telling him to stop. He's just staring at me, just floored it. It was 8:30 on Monday morning in Sydney. So there was cars everywhere. He's swerving over the road, trying to throw me up, braking, trying to make me fall out and stuff like that, and goes into Darlington, across the main road, and he actually T-bones a big van. sort of thing. I can do something here. So I got my gun out and threatened to shoot him and tap against his window, and he's still driving off, and we're going through Glebe, and we're going through Glebe. There's like so many people on the road on their way to work, and there's a pedestrian crossing that's coming up, and there's people walking across the road, and all I can see is through the front window. I'm still calling locations, doing the best I can to update radio. I'm still here like I can't get out, and I'm heading towards Ultimo, and I said Glebe, yeah, Ultimo. Heading towards Ultimo, and there's a pedestrian cross, there's people walking across, and I'm thinking someone's going to die here, and then it just basically, there's this big gap, and he's just gone through. So at that moment I'm going, you know, I have an option, I can shoot him. I have a choice. I've got to end this now before someone gets killed. But you know, my moment, you've got to think about, that's what the book's called, split second. You have a split second to make a decision that can save someone's life or cost someone their life. And if it's yours, so for me it was like, this guy's going to kill someone. I'm stuck here, there's nothing I can do. I can shoot him, which could end this right here and now, but he could lose control and kill someone on their way to work. And there's a member of the public going to work that day. Or I could just do my best and hope it works out. And I knew that day, I had a feeling that day that I was going to die. And as he's driving around Harris Street, Ultimo, in towards the city, we went around a blind corner so cars could have come towards us. The ute just leaned over. And it's like, you know, I'm just looking at the pavement, everything's going so slow. I'm thinking, if this bloke stops, I'm just going to get out and walk away. I don't care. My daughter had a daughter, she was probably 2 months old at that stage. And he just kept driving into the city. So I'm calling locations, and I hear, yep, this city car is coming towards me. Fantastic, I'm going to be saved. And this K truck comes towards me, I'm waving my gun, and it's like, it goes straight past me. It's like, this is not going to end well. So he goes into the city. Again, you see on the footage, around corners, it's just missing cars, just missing people. Goes in towards the park. I think it's Prince Alfred Park opposite Eddie Avenue near the train station, Central Train Station. He mounts the curb, takes out a no stopping sign. A bloke runs away and things, and then the car starts spinning around. So on the grass there, that's where I see my chance. So I've got my gun. I'm smashing the window, still calling locations, and end up smashing my hand and gun through the window, holding my gun against his head. Fucking stop the car, I'm going to shoot you. Passenger frogs it, opens the door, car's still spinning around, he gets out and just runs. He doesn't care, doesn't want to be there, he's gone. And then the driver gets out. I mean, I could have shot him, but driver jumps out, I jump out, start chasing him. Here I am calling my locations, running with my gun, big fat boy. And then he gets to a fence, and it's a big drop off down to towards the street that's down there, and he jumps off, and I'm trying to get over the fence, and I said put a one-hand gun, trying to put my gun away, but can't get it in the holster and everything else properly, and I try and get up over the first time, can't do it. He just leaps over, and then he jumps off this big. It's where the monorail is now. The light rail is there.
It's a decent drop.
It is, because he landed well, and I looked and went, no bugger it, and I started walking down, but I saw that some detectives and police cars were coming to his location. So he's run across the road, I'm walking down, I've got like internal injuries, my hands got blood all over me from punching my hand through the window and stuff, and my head's going, wasn't in a good place. And I've walked to a little cafe just opposite where he jumped off, and I'm sitting down, I got blood all over my hands, are shaking me, and members of the public actually came up to me and said, no, you okay? I had them washing my injuries down, I had them giving me water and stuff like that. Meanwhile, old mate decided, he kept running, detectives chased him and all the rest of it, so he actually ran into a building full of police on a training day. Did not end well. Of all the buildings, that's karma for you. Yeah. So he ended up getting arrested and taken back, and they caught the offsider too and everything else, and I just went to hospital, and I was just not in a good way.
Can I ask, what were your physical injuries?
I had internal injuries on the right side of my ribs, bruised ribs, bleeding, stuff like that, from being thrown around the back of the ute. I had injuries from punching my hand through the glass, from also holding onto the rope for the rope burn and stuff like that. And just most of it was just like psychological, that this bloke had tried to kill me. I knew it was going to be a bad day, but I didn't expect that. So I got taken to hospital. I told the inspector, handed my gun over to the inspector and said, look, I need you to call my wife. And they got taken to hospital, gave me my gun, so I didn't have to take it. Got to hospital, I just broke down. I just could not handle trying to process what had happened. And then ended up finding out that, the inspector did not call my wife. She actually rang the phone, which I'd actually dropped in the tray of the stolen ute, just to ring and say that, no, our little girl was watching Elma, I think it was, and was just laughing. She wouldn't tell me a positive story, but detective answered the phone saying, "I haven't heard Jeff's in hospital. He must got killed again." So she come down and that sort of stuff and saw me in hospital, took me home, and I cried all the way home, and just medicated myself, drank alcohol and stuff, and I got the occasional call from Redfern when I went off. They got some paperwork outstanding and everything else, the usual debrief and stuff like that. So, but it ended up, when I got picked up from the hospital, got taken back to work, and my wife was in the job at the time, my ex-wife. She worked at Redfern as well. And when we walked in, the crime manager said to us, when you've had a go, when you've finished having a go at him, let me have a go. That was my debrief. So I went upstairs, started writing my statement. I couldn't write. I was typing with one finger and stuff. I said, look, I just got to get out of here. So I ended up just going home, and that was my last day in Redfern. So, but they charged him with things, didn't even charge him with any assault, any offence against me. It was just driving a dangerous steel motor vehicle and stuff like that. So that's just how the system worked. So
how long did that go for? Like that, from the time you ended up in the ute to the time that, you know, you've kind of managed to sit down at a cafe, how long was that?
Oh, it felt like an eternity when you're in it. But for me, I think it was about 10 minutes. It wasn't that long. But it was
I think 10 minutes is long enough. Especially that's not a...
It was long enough.
Like through peak hour traffic.
Yeah, there was no break in what happened. So it was just trying to work out, you're stuck in here, you can't just get out and walk away. You're stuck here, you've got a portable, bloke's trying to kill you. And you're just doing the best that you can.
And let's think about it. Like, go back to 2001. OC was fairly new. Right, tasers didn't exist.
Yep.
I know we had expandable battens then, but again, an expandable baton versus a window, often doesn't work real well.
You still got to take it out, flick it.
You got to do all the rest.
If it flicks the first time,
holding on and doing whatever, like
gun, portable, baton. What are you going to do with? Yeah.
And that's the thing. You make a great point. The split-second decisions, and people second guess you. The Monday morning quarterbacks.
Plenty of time to review it and all the rest of it. I got called a loose cannon and stuff like that because of stuff that I was involved in. I was just doing my job, just doing it the best way I could. Like, I didn't know this was going to happen. I don't know how I got in the back of the head. And for months, I couldn't go back to Redfern. There was that incident, and obviously everything else. I knew at the time I wasn't coping. But I just didn't understand why. I just thought I was weak. I thought I was in the wrong job. I thought I was just letting it get to me, because I've been involved in lots of incidents where I chased an armed robber up Everly Lane by myself in the middle of the night. He still had the knife. He went in the back of the abandoned house in the yard. He's against the iron. I've grabbed him still with the knife in the hand. I've got him under arrest. I get grabbed from behind. He starts punching into me with the knife. Why he didn't stab me, how he didn't stab me. I was involved in incidents where the black market murders, where we actually see them walking out of the nightclub after murdering two members of an opposing OMCG gang and stuff. Just so many things, like arrested with a dog that was mauling. So many things. But for me, because there was no education in terms of what post-traumatic stress is, you didn't understand. You just thought you were weak. No one talked about it. So for me, that was it. So that said, I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew I wasn't coping. And for me, that was just it. Everything just came up. So it was that and everything else I dealt with in my career up until that stage.
So you went off. So how long did you go off after that incident for?
I was off for, that was August, July 2001. And then I returned to work back in 2003. So 18 months, but it took 6 months for Redfern to release, because the footage, I asked through my psychiatrist stuff, I want to see the footage, because for me, I was trapped in the ute. That was my perspective of what happened. I couldn't look at it from any other perspective except I was trapped in this ute, this bloke was trying to kill me, and I couldn't get past that. So all those emotions of fear and stuff were coming, so I didn't feel safe anywhere. So it took them 6 months to release the footage, but once they did, it was like a godsend, because no longer, we sat down, my ex-wife, her brother and I sat down and we watched the footage on the TV. And here I'm just watching this idiot on some bloke jump to the back of the ute. It was no longer me. I was no longer trapped in the ute, because it gave me a different perspective and interrupted my association as to me being trapped. I had nowhere else to go. So for me, I could sit down and actually watch me do that without it actually being me. And it didn't affect me anymore, because it stopped me being stuck in that. And it helped greatly. So did that, and then I was able to, I went back to work up in Lake Macquarie. Still couldn't wear uniform, couldn't carry badge, couldn't identify myself as a policeman. So I went up to work up in Lake Macquarie and met the sergeant there and with the return to work officer. And he walked in the station, he goes, "This is Jeff, he's got PTSD, he can't talk to anybody." It's like, thanks, Sarge.
It's a great intro.
Thanks, Sarge. So I worked in the back of the station in uniform.
So, like, that is just exactly what a cop would say.
Yeah, in plain clothes, and it was going okay. And then on my way to a training day one day, I had a fatal car accident happen right in front of me. So for me, I went straight into police mode. I did what I had to do to see. So I was okay until his wife turned up. And one of the things that surprised me most is one of the supervisors from that court actually turned up and go, "Are you okay?" It's like, "What did you say to me? What did you ask? I've been the cops all this time and been involved in so much. No one ever asked me if I was okay." And I was, until she turned up. And then I went home and I had a bath and a bottle of bourbon, and I had a glass of bourbon in one hand, the psychiatrist on the phone in the other hand and stuff, and that's took time off work. But that reinstilled my passion to get back into uniform again, because it was like an automatic switch. I'd been doing it for so long, and I'd shut it down because of stuff I'd been involved in. I knew it's what I wanted to do. So then I was able to return back to work. So I went to work to Morisset for a little while in uniform, then went to the prosecutors for a few years, and then I just missed being on the street so much. So I went back to back in uniform on the Central Coast, and then just more stuff happened.
And that's the thing, right? This narrative switch. And I've said this to a couple of people over the years. If you get to travel and meet with other law enforcement jurisdictions, right, it's very different. It's extremely different. And every I'll call them the Jeff adventures. Every Jeff adventure, you would have been received so differently overseas. Extremely positive. It would have been promoted, and you would have sort of been an example to the other officers. There's no way in many of these countries would you ever be sort of held to question as to why you took tenacious steps to apprehend an offender, because that's your job. That's what you do. And as I was telling Jeff before we started, I distinctly, a year before it happened to you, I distinctly remember chasing a ute while we're doing beat duty at Bankstown through Old Town Plaza, and this guy had taken off from us, and it was me and a high patrol officer doing beats, and I held on to the back of the tray, and I don't know why, I just put one leg over, and I just heard him say, "Danny, no!" and get off, like let him go.
I didn't have those voices.
Yeah. And I think to myself, that's how quick. That's the difference, right? It really could have happened. And in certain scenarios where so when you draw your firearm, it's kind of like last resort. And it's like, well, what do I do now? It stays out for a while, right? Or something's happening. Like, well, you got this psycho driving, and he's got a passenger, by the way, right? And he knows there's a gun to his head to stop. And in his mind, something's telling him, "Nah,
I've got to get him out.
I got to get him out." It's a kind of like, hopefully he won't do it. And I don't know if he saw the humanity in your eyes. I don't know what it was. He saw something that made him think he's still better off risking that you probably won't shoot him.
He thought, for me, it's like I could see in his eyes. It's like he only way he was going to escape was to get me out of the ute, and that's why the swerving and stuff like that I eventually just fall out, get thrown out and stuff like that. So it's just...
And potentially die. But he's not thinking, like, he may not be thinking about that.
He just wanted to get away. He didn't care how. That was his intent, was to get away. And that's obviously, it didn't end that way. But so like other incidents, like with the involving the firearm, once you get it out, like there was another incident at Redfern, a bloke had stolen a car. We knew who he was. Pursuits got terminated, but he was driving through a crowded park in Surrey Hills with kids and families in that sort of thing. He's driving straight towards us, and we couldn't let him keep driving the way he was. So I actually got my gun out and actually pointed at him again. But that morning I heard on the radio that a policeman had been charged with murder because he shot someone in a stolen car. So I'm going, should I shoot him? Should I not? Are they going to support me? And in that moment, the cars come through the line of trees, uprooted tree. A tree's hit me. His car, stolen car's landed on a police car, and I'm chasing him down the road. After that, it's like, but you should not have to think about those things when you're doing your job. He did what he did. He had the consequences of his own actions. I was trying to protect the community, but you shouldn't need to consider, are you going to be supported and protected when you're doing your job? And I could have easily died in that instance as well, because I'm thinking about, am I going to get supported? Are they going to charge me?
And this feeds into, I think, all the issues we're seeing currently with police and retention, where you're like, Okay, so everybody, no one gives any consideration of the fact that that offender chose to do what they're doing, yet you on the other side responding, try and do the best you can, you're going to be the one that's gets strung out. And
it's like the senior sergeant in Queensland who had the pursuit, and he called for the pursuit to continue and take that car out in Queensland. They arrested the violent offender who stole a car, but he lost his job because of the fact that he made that call. Like, that's what the community expects. That's their job that we're supposed to do, and you go and do it, and you get crucified by your own department.
Yeah.
And I think if you are able to speak to the majority of the public, you know, if you took a poll and there's a great deal of people out there that are actually criticize police because they're like, you're not doing your job because there's all this crime. They don't understand cops aren't allowed to do the job they want to do, because whenever they do, they get charged.
And there's so many cameras and stuff around these days. Like, if you do anything wrong, it's going to get used against you. So, I mean, it's okay for them to look at it from a perspective, but until they do the job that we do, they've got no idea what goes into being a policeman and the risks that we take. So, but a lot of people don't like people don't like the police until they actually need the police. Yes. So, and it's funny how that works.
I've often said to people that, you know, especially when I was in the job, that criticise, I'm like, okay, well, just look, your taxes pay my wages, fine, don't call, right? Don't pay those taxes, you work that out, the government, don't call us, I don't need to come and help you, but you will need me before I need you. And yeah, I think it's really, that tide has turned against the cops inside now doing the job. I think they're really struggling because of this, you know, almost like dog eat dog kind of world they're in internally, and they join for a reason they can't.
Well, that's the pressure, right? Like, you've already got a large element, well, the criminal element definitely aren't fans of you, right? Most people know that you're not coming to say, hey, congratulations, you won the lottery. Like, if you're knocking on a door and as a cop in uniform, either delivering bad news or investigating badness. Like, it's never a great thing. So you're already not, welcomed when you're coming to things. But to have that internally as well, like, how much can a person take? That's the issue as well. And that's why I think a lot of it is that because you come in with these ideals and these passions for things that you want to achieve, right?
Yep. And a lot of the things that I do, like with the work that I do now, like a lot of the things, especially in terms of like the post-traumatic stress, it's got nothing to do with the jobs that we attend. A lot of it has to do with the people we work with, the management, the culture within the actual organisation. That's what's causing all the people to have problems, because everyone's trying to do the best they can, but then they're getting issues, getting made examples of at work and stuff like that. So they've obviously got life outside of home, they've got relationship issues, health issues, then they've got stuff with work, their actual paperwork, underpaid, understaffed, and then the incidents they're involved in, but you also got this stuff around management and the culture that just doesn't support you. It just makes a hard job even harder.
I got contacted probably about a month ago by a former inspector, actually I think he's still in the job, we both used to work with. And he raised with me that he saw a study where it was like 85 or 90% of police that were off with mental health issues or, injuries, whatever, part of their claim was effectively moral injury. And that's that injury from inside the cops, from hierarchy, criticising them in a space where they didn't feel like they didn't go out and act maliciously, they weren't negligent, they were trying to do the job the best way they could at the time. Anybody that's been in a supervisory position or even just the senior officer place has been what I like to call the Monday morning quarterback, where you turn up to the meeting. I remember being like a DO and sergeant on the weekend, you turn up to the Monday morning meeting with the superintendent's there and like, you should have done this, this, this and this. Like, yeah, all those things you mentioned, I would have done had I have had any of that information at the time. The information, the resources would have been nice, except now we're 48 hours later and that stuff which I didn't know at the time.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, didn't have the resources, didn't have the people, didn't have the time or the information. What do you want me to do with that? Did the best with what I had at the time. And so many cops find themselves in that position. To change the subject slightly, I think it'd be, for those guys that are on the front line, one of the things you mentioned to us before was, we were discussing just before the interview about recognising what the issues were. And you said you'd noticed that you had a bunch of things kind of the build up as anybody would. Would you mind explaining what were some of the symptoms you experienced? Because I think a lot of cops, a lot of frontline workers just kind of take that on board as being normal. And so it's really good for people to understand that if you're experiencing this could be an indicator to go get some help.
Yeah, so for me, main thing was like a lot of like just, for me, I took a lot of risks, and I'd get involved in something. It's like, I survived that, let's take more risks. So it can be in a form of risk taking, also withdrawing. So withdrawing socially, withdrawing at work. For me, some places, especially working up on the Central Coast, it was like I'd go to work and I'd sit there and I'd cry because I'd been involved in incidents I was trying to do. I just couldn't handle the thought of going into work. You could be just starting to drink alcohol. You could be just like emotions, anger and frustration, just outbursts and stuff, just isolating yourself, not socialising with people, not communicating with people, taking risks at work, and just not being who you would normally be. And it's why it's important, education is so important for, like, from the academy, to teach people, like, you're going to see things in your career that's going to affect you, but they need to know what that is. I mean, you got your appointment belt, you got your guns, your firearm, your OC, your taser, your baton and stuff like that. But there's nothing on the tool belt in terms of this is what's going to affect you, this is what you're going to see, but it's natural and it's normal. And if you actually get help soon enough, it can actually stop you going down that path of actually being discharged and being affected by it. But also education for the families, because the families are the ones that would see the changes most, because they're the ones who've known them before they join the cops, mostly, and then see how they're being affected. So if the family can identify in them that person's slightly changing, then they can reach and get help for that person, or find out what they can do to support it. Because a lot of cops don't like taking the job home, and the families don't have any idea in terms of what they're going through. They don't understand. But with education in the cops, with the families, and even the community in terms of what they're going through, it'll make a massive difference in terms of understanding, okay, I'm going through this. Okay, I understand why I'm being affected, why I can't go to that location, why I'm actually getting emotional about it, why I'm avoiding certain things, why I get triggered by noises and sounds and smells, because I had an event and it's made me react that way. Okay, but then you can actually do something about it. I'm not broken, I'm not crazy, it's normal. I just need to do something about it, even though the culture won't support me in doing that. I need to find a way to do it myself.
Yeah. There was a lot also that I found poignant, was when you're helping someone, and in both instances for you, or maybe three, you were saving the person's life, they were attacking you, right? Which is something that kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of policing scenarios. And I remember having a situation where it was a domestic, and we went to do the arrest, and it was a husband beating up on the wife, but it was during like a little Christmas party at home. There's a lot of people in the house. We go upstairs, and she kind of tells me as I'm going into the room, there's a shotgun under the bed. So as my partner's going to make the arrest, I'm like, and this guy's a big boy, do I help my partner grab this guy, or do I go get the gun? And I was like, get the gun. I think we'll deal with whatever happens after. So as I go underneath, and I see there was a shotgun. I start taking the gun, I take control of it. She just starts hitting me. The victim of the DV starts hitting the back of my head, and I'm like, are you, what do you do? So you're underneath a bed with on top of a gun while your partner's wrestling with a. It was just a terrible situation. Like, I should not be in this scenario. And when you had the situation where, well, you had two poignant ones. One of them was with the person that tried to jump off the cliff, that then tries to take you with him as you're trying to hold on for dear life. And then you had the moron that tried to drown you, and as you tried to save his life, he headbutts you twice.
Yeah, common sense isn't very common. Yeah, one thing from being in the job, you just know that you just don't know what to expect. That's one of the best things about the job, is that you can go the same job 10 times in the same day, but everything's different. But you deal with people who you just don't know how they're going to react. You risk your safety to save them, and there's not much you can do about it. And you just got to be thankful that you actually come out the other side. And both those instances, I was very, very lucky to survive. And they occurred within a few weeks of each other too. So that just compounds on. You get through one, then you got the other thing going on as well. So it just makes it really, really hard and to deal with. And I took time off after that as well, because especially the one with the ute, with the trying to save this young bloke in the channel, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't even drive over the bridge because I was working at the entrance. It's a report of a stolen car. It was a report of a possible drink driver. So I've just picked up my lunch from me and the other sergeant. Yep, okay, I'll just go and sort this out, Sarge. Won't be long.
Famous last words.
Yeah, so I went down, it's like a 2-minute drive down the road. Went there. There's one car in this car park near the entrance channel. So I just pulled up next to him. He's just gotten out, looked at me, and just went, bang, see you later. So I mean, you ran towards the entrance, you've got the water on one side, you've got the city and freedom this side. He's gone, splash. So I'm going, okay, righto, fair enough. So at this stage, I just thought he was a drink driver, young bloke trying to run away because he'd been drinking too much. So he's gone in, and it was it was dark, it was deep, it was late, it was April, it was the weather was cold and stuff like that. So I kept losing sight of him. So I've called for assistance, and my big concern was, this is going to be a death in custody.
Yes.
I didn't want him to die. So some security officers turned up. I said, look, I've got to go in. I've given them my appointments, and I've gone in after him, not realising they've just finished dredging the entire channel. So it was
Deep as hell now.
So I'm like, on my tippy toes, I can't touch the ground. So I'm swimming out to save him, trying to position him between the bridge where there's lights, that to see where he was, that sort of stuff. And I'm swimming, and I carried my torch with me, trying to so I could actually see. And I'm thinking, I can't carry the torch and swim, so I'm going to put the torch in my pants. And I thought, I was so worried about losing the torch. So I tried to put the torch in my pants. I didn't want to get in trouble for losing the torch. So this is what you think about doing these, these things.
Hilarious.
So I ended up getting the torch in the pants, and then I started to go under. It's like, this is ridiculous. And then managed to find a sandbar and could still see him, and he starts swimming back towards the side where he get away from, and then the policeman turned up. He started swimming back in the middle again, and so ended up getting up to him, and then I ended up catching up to him, and I'm on a sandbar and swimming out to him. Look, I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to save you, everything else. He's going, help, and I've actually swum out to save him. There's nothing underneath me, and I've grabbed him to try and save him, because that's what I wanted to do. Nothing else was a concern. And then he said, you're not fucking locking me up, and he headbutted me and then held me underwater. So I was like, hang on a second, okay, this just happened. So I managed to pull myself up and punch him in the head and bring him back and get back to a sandbar, which wasn't too far away, and stand on my tippy toes. It's like 10:30 at night, so it's pitch black dark, freezing cold. And he's going, I'm so sorry. I said, mate, I just want to, he goes, I don't want to die. I said, I don't want to die either. And he lost his jumper. He said, I've lost my jumper, go get my jumper. I said, I'm not getting your fucking jumper. And then he said, but him again. So I've gone, just grabbed his head and dipped his head in the water. He's gone, sorry. And then because I obviously didn't have a radio and stuff like that, see police cars and ambulances going past and everything else. I had no idea when this is going to end. And there's the caravan park on the far side. And then I see these police come, they commandeered a boat and that sort of stuff, and come and got me. He said, look, put him in, look after him, put him in. I've hung on to the side of the boat and got dragged back to the shore, and I've just let go. I've just started drifting away. I was just losing consciousness and stuff because of the hypothermia and stuff like that, and they got him and they dragged me back on, and everything else, and and I got taken to hospital. I had severe hypothermia. I should have just died just from the hypothermia, but I got taken to the hospital, and they had it inspected. I worked out why. I was wondering why they weren't treating me. Like I had a beanie on. They taken my uniform off. I was wrapped in that silver warming blanket sort of thing, and they thought I was the offender because they found out what happened.
You're just getting dirty looks.
KJ that to a policeman. They thought I was the cook, but I'm the policeman and everything else. And so it worked out. Ended up being that car he was in was stolen. He'd burned out another stolen car behind one of the buildings. The car was full of stolen property. He was one of our high-risk offenders and stuff like that. And I wouldn't have changed what I did. It certainly explained why he did what he did, but it's just another example of what happened. And from that moment on, I got home and had to tell the wife, again, ex-wife, what happened, and that didn't go down well, never does, because it just kept happening. But then I had to try and go back to work, because it happened right near the entrance. I had to go over the bridge. I live north of the bridge, so to get to work, I had to drive over the bridge. So I'd come to this side of the bridge, and I couldn't do it. So I'd sit in that side of the bridge, and I'd cry. I couldn't do it because of the fear, the association with what happened to me in that location. Or I'd drive 45 minutes around the other side just to get to work. But no, when you're in the job, you've got to drive over the bridge. So I ended up taking time off. There were other incidents as well, and that was it. Again, I could feel my cup overflowing, and it just got too much. And then I just went back to prosecuting, got promoted to senior sergeant, and then spent some time down there, hurt my back, and it just all got too much.
But then you did a really, really interesting thing. You started to go back to locations where you had these traumatic events. Can you explain how that worked?
Yes, that's what I did. Like with the incidents, it happened. Like obviously the incident with the Crackneck Hotel and the Crackneck Lookout, where the bloke he's sitting on the side of the cliff. He wanted to kill himself. I've grabbed him. We've wrestled. He's tried to throw me over twice. And the incident with the entrance channel. So with doing this for so long, I understand like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It's about not what happened to you, it's about the meaning and emotion you attach to it. So for me, I create an association to this place equals danger, equals fear, equals fear, and not a lot of bad memories and things like that. So for me, I actually took myself back to that location. So when it happened, it was dark, it was deep, it was late. So I actually went back there in a time when the sun was shining, the water was so low, there was a sandbank. So for me, and one of the things I did before that is, for me, when I have a flashback about one of the events, about that event, is I was seeing our daughter's faces as I was drowning. So that when I'd have a trigger, that was what I'd see. So what I did is, that was the negative association. So what I did is, I took my daughters down there and I took a photograph of them smiling in front of the bridge, and that was my screensaver. So when I have a flashback, it'd be, I'm drowning, seeing their faces as I'm drowning, to this happy memory association of them smiling in front of the bridge. And that's interrupting your patterns of thought. That's because our memories are like a CD. We play them over and over again. If you can interrupt your patterns of thought, it's like scratching that CD, so it can't be played over and over again. So for me, it was bad memory to happy memory. I said to a stage where I was able to, actually walk into the middle of the entrance channel. Yes, there wasn't much water there. There's still water and stuff, but it was a place where I'd almost been killed. I mean, for me, I did a Facebook Live there going, here I am, I was almost killed here, such and such years ago. Like I just picked up lunch or something, because the fact that I'd removed that association and that emotion around what happened to me, it no longer affected me. And that's what happened with the incident with the ute too. For so long I was trapped in the tray of the ute, but looking at the video, it changed my perspective, interrupt my association. So I was no longer trapped. So I was able to do that for all my events I was involved in. So they no longer affected me, and I was able to visit locations and not be affected by sound, smells, locations and things like that. And that's what I do, and why I do what I do now, because you don't need to relive the event in order to release it.
And you touched on so many things there. So I love the fact that you raised, you were worried about the critical incident if he dies, right? You did nothing but turn up to a guy, and this is what people don't understand. I've seen critical incidents where someone's thrown himself off a cliff when the cops literally just pulled up. So the cliff's 50, 100 metres away. They turn around and see the police go there. They throw themselves off. Critical incident. You're worried about losing a torch. Who gives a damn about the torch? But the truth is,
it's an accountable item.
It is, right? People don't understand that the lengths you will have to write a report. You do all this stuff because a $50 torch got lost in the attempt to save someone's life. Who cares? The other thing that I think cops don't tend to realise, and I think in people that aren't in the job don't realise this either, is that, so you have a bad incident, but it's not just that incident. It's because the very next day you go and do, it may not be incidents that are as bad, but you're reconfirming, when you rerun these memory reels in your head about all the bad stuff that happens, and then every day it's reconfirmed for you about how crap life is. And that's why you see increased levels of suicide. That's why you see people turning to alcoholism. That's why you see this change in demeanour, because they go from generally happy, driven, idealistic people to the world sucks. And your worldview turns because it is reinforced every shift, multiple times per shift.
Yep. Because of the lack of education, they don't understand what they're going through. They're told they're not allowed to talk about it. If they show that they're affected by it, then they're weak. They're going to go and look for promotion. So the culture doesn't support that, and so they just go and do it. And they don't know how to cope with it. So they cope with it by drinking, because that's what you do. You finish a night shift, you go and drink some alcohol. That's your debrief. And when they do a debrief, it's like, okay, this is a serious incident. Who wants to talk about how they're feeling? It's like, who's going to put their hand up? In a very mass culture like the police and stuff, it's not. And the problem is that a lot of the people who become bosses and commanders are from the old school, when this certainly wasn't a thing to talk about. It's getting better now, but you can't talk about these sort of things. And then you get bosses who won't support you doing those sort of things. So the biggest problem isn't the stuff you're involved in, it's the fact that it's the culture that doesn't allow you to understand that this is normal and be able to talk to your mates. Because who else could you talk to? It would be better to talk to about what you're going through as the people who are actually going through what you're going through. Yeah. That's why I love doing what I do, because people can relate. I haven't just read a book and stuff like that. I've actually gotten through it. So people have all this stuff they're dealing with, but they don't know how to deal with it. So they shut down, they drink, they don't live the life. They can't talk to their family, and they won't talk because they don't want to get criticised and stuff. So they try and do it the best they can, but they get told it's a disorder. They get told it's a life sentence, and you get to learn to live with it. Who would ever want to admit or acknowledge and be aware of that? That's what they're going through. Because there's no to them. It's the end of a career. It's career suicide.
I mean, something I take out of that is that people tell you it is a life sentence. And I think just about every cop I know and former cop would say they've had this thing. For instance, how many times you walk into a cafe or a restaurant and you sit down and you sit with your back to the wall and you choose the optimal position. And my second wife, she got to a point where she's like, I don't understand what makes something tactically the best location in a restaurant or something. So you choose. When we go to sit down somewhere, you choose. I'll pull the chair out for her. I'm like, you're sitting here, I'll sit there. Yep. On the weekend, I went out with my lovely wife, had a dinner, just the two of us, had my back to the entrance. I was facing a corner. She's like, that's weird. I said, but you know what? Over time, when it's not reinforced daily, when you work on yourself and when you make an effort to try to be a better person and not let it control you, you can do these things. But it is time and it is trying, right?
It's about having the awareness, because we don't know what it is. We're told, even by specialists, that it's a life sentence. You've got to learn to live with it. We socialise with people on Facebook who go all they do is just stay in that emotion.
It's like an echo chamber.
Yeah, it's sort of like they hang around people who make them believe that it's not possible. So, but the longer you are away from something, if you've got the awareness to understand that, okay, this is just something I've gone through, and because of the fact I'm no longer in that situation, my life at risk, the longer you spend time away, the easier it will get. But what happens is, just to get on a more of a clinical sort of thing, is when we experience something, the unconscious mind goes, what are we experiencing and what are we feeling? It could be anything in your life. So is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it raining? Where am I? What are the sounds? What are the smells? And it basically puts a flag in that event. So when you experience something similar in the future, like you don't feel safe, you've got to sit with your back to the wall, look at the entrance, the mind, you react with the emotions you attach to that original experience. So because you've had experiences in your past where you don't feel safe, your mind's primary function is to keep you safe. So what it does, it puts you in a position to make sure that if you need to get away, then you know how to do that. So it's got nothing to do with you feeling fearful at that cafe. It's just reacting with the fear, because in your past you've been in situations where you felt fear. And because it wants you to feel safe, it won't let you sit with your back to the door. Yep. But by releasing the emotions, then that won't affect you anymore. But that's understanding that when you're being triggered, it's got nothing to do with that specific event. It's got to do with all the trauma you've experienced and that emotion you've attached to that experience. That's what you're acting with. That's what's causing the problems.
Can you expand on, you mentioned in the book, right towards the end, the feather brick truck?
Oh, God. So there's a principle that, like, we're all supposed to have achieve certain things in life. There's a principle called the feather brick truck principle. So it's just the universe's way of basically making sure that you're on track. If things are happening in your life, you're not really on the path you're meant to be, or it's in your best interest, the universe will give you like a little sign, like a metaphorical feather. Like you might just kick your toe, or you lose your keys or something, just to say, let's just take a stop and just reassess things. Most of the time we're too busy to not worry about it. If you don't pay attention to that and you ignore it, then obviously it's going to get a bit more serious, like a metaphorical brick, something a bit more serious, like a car accident, an illness and things like that. And if you're still not listening, the universe will hit you with an actual metaphorical truck. Obviously the ute for me was an actual metaphorical truck, actually a literal truck, where basically it just shuts you down and makes you stop and reassess your life. Because it's the fact that what you're doing is not what you're supposed to be doing, or you're on the right path. You need to take time off. If you're not going to take time off, then I will stop you in your tracks and make you reassess your life. So I've had incidents, lots of brick incidents and truck incidents and stuff like that were universe. Even these days, I stuck it at a brick incident a couple of weeks ago. It just makes you stop and reassess where you are in your life, because sometimes we get stuck in the unconscious mode of just living life, just existing. We don't really pay attention to what's going on. Sometimes we need a reminder to know that, is this really the best thing for you? Is it the right path and stuff like that? So
now, how do you go from that to becoming a multiple Guinness World Record holder?
That was during. Yes. So for me, like I said, one of the reasons I joined the cops is because of the fact I wanted to make a difference. When I was 17, organised the Ride for Nobody's Children, push-bike ride from Newcastle to Surfers Paradise. I don't think I did. I owned a bike, used to ride from school, like a 10-minute bike ride to school. Here I was going to ride a bike to Queensland. So that was my way of making a difference. I just wanted to get involved in the community. So here I was, a 16, 17-year-old boy, organising a bike ride, went very successfully. Obviously, I fell off my bike doing that too. Almost fell beneath the wheels of a truck. There's a surprise. Ended up raising money for homeless kids. Ended up in a hospital next to a bloke who actually got beaten up by a homeless bloke.
I love it.
And didn't mention that to him. Oh God, the universe. Following year, I produced a charity concert at Newcastle University, raising money. It was the largest performance at the time. It's like the big concert they have every year. That was really good. And then in the cops, like obviously my focus became making a difference in the community. So I was doing that. I thought, I wouldn't mind actually doing some charity stuff. So 2001, 2002, I think it was. I broke a world record, Guinness World Record for most holes of golf in 7 days. I played 1,728 holes of golf in 7 days. Ruined my handicap. I finished the event, and the golf club tried to give me a 6-month membership. Didn't play golf for 4 years. After that, that you've been out there too long when you're seeing little Martians running around the golf course, and these rakes are standing up in the bunkers by themselves. And it was just before I broke the record, I knew that I was going to break it. So because you've got to focus, you've got to achieve this goal. I was playing golf 22 hours a day. I slept face down on a massage table. The masseuse physio would basically massage my arms and shoulders, my legs, while I was face down on a massage table. That was my sleep between.
I can tell you, playing one round of golf is torturous for me. I don't know how anybody does it for that long.
It was just, you just set a goal, you know what you're doing. And because I knew that I was going to break the record, I started to shut down. My body just basically shut down. I just wouldn't wake up, collapse sort of thing, and they could have taken me to hospital, but thank God they filled me full of electrolytes and did whatever and got me back out there. So I ended up breaking the record and things like that. But that was certainly an experience. And then I actually, years later, Troy Grant was an inspector up at Tenterfield. He actually raising money for a young bloke who ended up with the same spinal injuries as Christopher Reeve. So I ended up actually helping him break my record, which was, cool. Yeah, it was good. For me, it feels like, no, bugger off. But when he first reached out, it was like, it's not about me, it's about helping to raise money and awareness. So I went up and helped him, and I pretended to crash tackle him on the Holly broke my record and stuff like that. And so that was good. Like, it was about using my experiences to help people. And then a couple of years later, we did some mates and we raised money for Westpac Rescue Helicopter. We played 27 hours of darts at a local shopping centre. That was fun.
Were you throwing the darts at people or boards?
Mind you, this is like throughout the night, under rain, under like...
in the middle of a shopping centre. And then we broke a world record to organise 2 teams of police. We played 67 hours of cricket in 2009, I think it was. So we ended up breaking 3 Guinness World Records. So that was my spare time.
Damn.
Apart from doing my law degree, going through my PTS, plus doing all my policing stuff and raising kids and stuff like that. So
what you're really saying is you're an underachiever. You barely just scraped through everything you ever did.
Yeah. Get off your ass, man.
Hey, look, I can probably organise a few mentors to help, move yourself up.
Suggestion, thank you. It has been 15 years since I broke a world record, so I do need to sort of there's a few I'm thinking about. But that's not really
world's longest fingernails. That's what I'd be going for if I were you. Wow, that is an amazing story. I guess for me, tell the audience now, what are you doing for yourself right now?
So for me, I'm a big believer that things in life happen for a reason. I believe I went through all this stuff with my post-traumatic stress, being suicidal, and the fact that I was able to get through it so I could actually use my experience to help people. Like, a lot of people, especially cops, don't want to go and talk to people. They've already been through the experience. They're already reliving it when they're being triggered. They don't want to relive it. So people won't go and do the talk therapy, exposure therapy, because they don't have to relive the event, because it can be very traumatizing. So for me, I now run my own business where I actually help people to process their past events without going into detail. So I do NLP, which I've been doing for over 25 years. I do timeline therapy, which is a modality which is actually introduced in England to support the soldiers come back from war, even though DVA here won't touch it, neither will the insurance companies. It's my most favourite modality to use, because all we're doing is identifying what are the events from the past are affecting you, what's the emotion and what's the belief. Through the process, we release the trauma, emotion by emotion. So anger and sadness gone in less than an hour, fear less than 45 minutes. It's fast and it's effective, and it works without having to go into detail. I've got my law degree. I don't have to do this, but I believe that I went through this in order to help people because I've got that lived experience. Haven't just read a book, haven't just done a course, got qualifications. I've been doing this for over 25 years. My PTSD journey started before 2001. Okay, so I'm an expert in the brain. I know how it works. I know how trauma affects the brain. I know how to help people. I know PTS inside and out. It's not a disorder. It's a diagnosis. It's not a definition. There's certainly hope after the job, but you just got to be able and open to reach out to get help from people that know, because there's so many people out there who can get help who aren't because they're being told they're stuck with it.
How can people find you, mate?
So I'm mainly through social media, through Facebook. I run my own page. I run my business under my own name, Jeff Garland. I have a website which is jeffgarland.com.au. You could reach out to me, send me an email at jeff@jeffgarland.com.au, and whatever way that happens to do it. If you know somebody, just reach out. Even if it's just a conversation. Like I run events, like free events, just educating people about what post-traumatic stress is. So sometimes we just need to have a conversation to understand what we're going through and just know we're not broken and that everything's okay. So I'm happy to have a conversation if that's just all you need. Yeah. But if you need help when we release stuff, I can definitely help you do that, help you to reclaim your life and to take charge and let go of the stuff in the past. But the person has to be open to that. So
I think there's something to be said for speaking to someone that's had similar experience, so you feel like you're understood. I've never met anybody that felt comfortable talking to someone really that didn't have that same kind of lived experience. So I think that's rare and unique, but great. I also think, look, just try something different.
As long as it works, no matter. What I say to people, if you don't want to work with me, that's fine. Just go and do something. I'll give you some tools and education to understand what you're going through. But just if you're going to get help, go and do it. If it's me, great. If not, that's okay too. Just go and get some help. Don't keep doing it, because time's one thing we can't get back. You can let this stuff go. You just got to have the right support. And it's good to be related, because we can have a conversation like this, like when we're talking, without having trying to dumb things down and trying to explain things in a way that other people who haven't experienced don't understand. So I understand because I've been through it and I've gone through it and I've gotten through it. So that's why I don't have to do this, but I love doing this. It's my passion, it's my purpose, and I'll keep talking to anybody who wants to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you want to get better and you've tried something that hasn't worked, like when it doesn't work first time, try something new, keep trying. Get better. Like that is your key.
Understand that what you're going through, it's not who you are, it's just how you are based on your past. And all you're doing is you're reacting and being triggered by past events. You release the emotions around the past events. They don't affect you. I've worked with clients around the world with post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, those who are suicidal, sexual abuse, domestic violence, who are all getting great results because they're just allowing themselves to do things in a different way. But you've got to make that decision and take that control and reach out.
Well, fantastic, man. And also, again, guys, the book, strongly recommend you read it. Especially those that are in the job, I would really recommend it. It's not about the events; it's about how the events shape you, and it's about what you can do afterwards. That really speaks volumes. And mate, again, look, thank you for taking the invitation. We're honoured to have you. I think you've been fantastic. I think you can help a lot of people, and maybe Anthony can break some awards. He can inspire him to do. He'll come back with some random shit.
I'm already a contender for one ugliest man on YouTube award.
No, thank you very much for having me on. Like I said, I love to share my experience. It's great to talk to other cops who've gone through it, and what you're doing by providing a platform for other police to speak and hear, because we all tend to think that we're going through this by ourselves because of the lack of support and education. But by having these conversations and podcasts and using social media and the internet and stuff, that we can actually share our story, not just locally but globally and things. Because even though like police and emergency services around the world were situated differently, we all go through the same sort of things. So we all understand. Sometimes we get there in a different vehicle. Mine was the ute. Other people do it through other service and other issues in life. But it's about having that conversation and then being able to have the courage to reach forward and understand and support each other.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jeff. We really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I love about what we do is just getting to meet great people and talk, and have those synergies and, it's like, I've never met you before today, and having spoken to you briefly beforehand, I feel like I've got a new mate. So
it is, because we all understand it's easy to have a conversation with you and things, because one thing cops do, they love telling stories and stuff like that, but they think that because of what they've gone through that they can't have that. And it's about just knowing that we had a lot of good times in the cops too, And we're just letting the bad times define us, and that's just not. We need to focus on the mates, the family. I mean, it is a family, but not all families work. So the same with the policing family. We have dysfunctional families. The police force, service, whatever they call themselves these days, is certainly dysfunctional in that way. But we're all understand each other because we've all gone through it together. So we should support each other and continue to, whether we're serving or not.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jeff. Guys, your Father's Day coming up. We've got Christmas coming up. If you know someone, honestly, even if you're not in the cops or you're not looking at it, still a great read. Amazing journey in here. So get a copy of it. It's online. You can get it through Amazon, I think. Look, get a copy, guys. You won't be disappointed. Danny, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, buddy. Always a pleasure.
Fake at all, did it?
Always a pleasure.
That didn't sound fake at all, did it? Well, look, it just feels weird seeing him wear the aggressive man salmon shirt today.
First time caller, long-term listener. But, no, it's been a pleasure, mate. Look, again, thank you very much for turning up. This has been amazing. While we're thanking people, let's thank our sponsors, IC Technology. You can find them at ictechnology.com.au for all things managed IT services. And
Precision Integrity. I'm not going to... Okay, Jenny's indicating. We'll point. Behind us, that's where you'll find us. That's Danny's company and mine. You'll find us at www.privateinvestigatorsydney.com.au. Guys, if you've got, always like, share, subscribe, please comment. We're always happy to get your insights. If you've got some ideas for us, put in the comments, or you can send it to us. There's an info form on our website. Go to that, send us your ideas, and we'll try to address that. Once again, thank you so much, Jeff. It's been an absolute pleasure. See you next time, guys.